Alright, hello everyone, Mr. No Souls here, and today I'm going to be talking about the Fighter. This is a bread and butter class that many of the martial classes are kind of measured up against in order to determine how effective they are at being a frontline unit. When you think about someone that gets up into the melee and beats enemies, you normally think of the Fighter. However, the fighter isn't necessarily just a melee focused class. There's a lot of opportunity to actually build them also as a range fighter in which they can use crossbows or bows and arrows. They're a fan favorite for going and doing multi-classing with as well because of their ability at being strong in the fundamentals of combat. Now, core fighter traits, this is an unusual one in which your primary ability is strength or dexterity, as they call it out right there, front and center. You don't have to be strength to go beat a bunch of fools. You could go and play with dexterity and pick them off from afar. Or maybe you like to use a rapier and a light buckler and you just parry riposte everybody. You know, fighters are powerful classes. What is your hit point die? How much health are you going to have? Well, every time you level up, you have a d10 worth of increase. Not the largest, the barbarian was larger, but they are definitely on the largest scale. They are some of your tankiest and most resilient classes that you can get. What saving throws do they have? Strength and constitution. Kind of favors strength then because their primary and their proficiency is going to be in strength. However, that's not necessarily the most important thing in the world. These are nice and quite effective. Now, your skill proficiencies, you only get two of them, like many of the other classes, and these are acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, history, insight, intimidation, persuasion, perception, or survival, and you get two of those. Now, what weapons can you use? You can use all of them pretty much right out the gate. Simple and martial, straight up. And the armor? What armors can you use? Light, medium, and heavy. You have every armor right out the gate. Oh, and on top of that, little cherry on top, you also have shields. There you go. Now, what equipment should you consider? So you have three starting choices. Effectively, one is more melee, the other is more ranged, and then the last one is the straight gold option, which, as you know, is my preferred. I always like to go straight for the gold. But if you go for the more strength choice, you get chainmail, a great sword, a flail, 8 javelins. You also gain the Dungeoneer's pack, which gives you backpack caltrops, which are little like traps you can throw on the ground that'll hurt people if they step on it, a crowbar, 2 flasks of oil, 10 days of rations, rope, tinderbox, 10 torches, and a water skin. All good stuff. But generally useful. Caltrops are a little more situational, but everything else in that is pretty useful just out the gate. It's down to your creativity. Now, there's a little bit of a lighter option here. Oh, also note you get 4 gold pieces at the end as well. And option B, little lighter, but also is better set up for ranged or being a switch hitter. You gain studded leather armor, a scimitar, short sword, longbow, 20 arrows with a quiver, and also the Dungeoneer's pack again. And at the end of it, you're getting 11 gold pieces to be able to spend on whatever it is you're interested in. Finally, at option C, you could just take 155 straight gold pieces and buy your own stuff. Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to be able to just throw around and buy things. But fighters have a huge variety of kits that you can play with. So you need a good bit of money if you want to go for some of the more tanky builds. You know, chainmail isn't cheap. So, yeah. chainmail, great swords, flails, and javelins, these things are not stuff that you can just cheaply grab. They tend to have a little bit of an upfront cost to it. As such, the fighter starts out with more gold than many other classes get right out the gate if you go for their cash option. Now, when you choose to become a fighter, of course, you gain all the traits, you gain the level 1 features, which are listed in the fighter features table. We will go through these a little bit later, but these are the fighting style feats. And then as a multi-class fighter, you get their hit points, you gain their proficiency with martial weapons, and you gain the light and medium armor. Note you do not get that heavy armor, so if you're going in there for heavy armor, that is not the class that you're looking for. You do gain shields, however. So you have everything to be a frontliner if you multi-class into a fighter. You don't necessarily have the heaviest armor, but hey, you gain martial weapons as well. So if you went as like a wizard right out the gate or a sorcerer and then went into a fighter, you have now frontline capabilities. You also gain all the fighter features listed in the table. And oh my goodness, look at these fighter class feats. I mean, you're not going to see this often, folks, but just, oh, it might not be as wordy, but my god, is it dense. Every single level, something happens, something goes up, you are getting something to look at and play with. And that is why it's the bread and butter, because my gosh, is there so much bread, and damn, they left a lot of butter on it. So let's get into what you get right out the gate, starting with your fighting style, level 1. You are going to be gaining a fighting style feat of your choice. So right there, that is this. That are these kind of feats. So you can start off getting improvement to your ranged abilities. You can gain the ability to fight blind. So if you are somehow blinded or in pitch dark, there you go. Do you want to have just improvement to your armor class? So as long as you're in some armor, you get more armor. That's not bad. Would you prefer to be a duelist? And when you're holding a melee weapon, one or no other weapon. So one-handed weapon, just two-handing a weapon, as long as you have some weapon, +2 bonus damage on rolls with a weapon. That's a good thing to get. What about weapons that are just so ridiculously big? So ridiculously big. When you roll damage for an attack with a melee weapon you're holding with 2 hands, you can treat any 1 or 2 on a damage die as a 3. Must have 2-hand or versatile properties to gain that benefit. So, straight up just stops you from rolling 1 damage. It's not bad. Not phenomenal, but it's not bad. What about interception? When a creature you see hits another creature within 5 feet of you with an attack roll, you can take a reaction and reduce the damage by 1d10 plus your proficiency bonus. You have to have a shield or a simple or martial weapon to use this reaction. Straight up, you just have to use your reaction. And you gain the ability to reduce people's damage with a d10 plus the proficiency bonus, which you get for leveling up. So let's just real quick. Oh, whoops, I'm actually going the entirely wrong way here. There we go. Proficiency bonus. So 10 plus 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 6. That's respectable. Or a straight protection style. When a creature you see is attacked other than you, within 5 feet of you, you take a reaction to interpose your shield if you're holding one, and you impose disadvantage on the attacking roll in all other attack rolls against the target until the start of the next turn if you remain 5 feet of your target. Straight up, instead of reducing damage, you just make it harder to hit. Yeah, this is like wild level of stuff you get in here, and this fundamentally shifts how you're going to want to fight in some cases. Thrown weapon fighting. So you want to be a rogue. You want to be able to throw your dagger and be real flashy and stuff. Thrown weapon fighting, right out. Level 1, you gain this. When you hit with a ranged weapon, roll using a weapon that has a thrown property, you get +2 to damage. +2. That's just straight up making thrown weapons even better. Level 1. 2 weapon fighting. So you want to have 2 axes. When you make an extra attack as a result of using a weapon with the light property, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of that attack if you aren't already adding it to the damage. So if you're using a weapon that you don't really have some kind of bonus to, or you're using it in the offhand, I believe you might not get your ability modifier to your second attack. You now get to add in whatever your ability modifier is, which you could, if you're at 16, you have a 3 ability modifier, so 3 extra damage on your second attack. Not a huge one, but it stacks up pretty quickly if you keep landing hits with it. All great things to have. Now, that is the level 1 fighting styles. You also gain, right out the gate at level 1, second wind. You pretty much as a bonus action can go and give yourself 1d10 plus your fighter level extra hit points back. You could just heal yourself. That is very nice. Now, granted, you don't necessarily get the most second wins. You get 4 at max. But a big thing is you really quickly hit this like topping out of how many second wins you get. You get your max at level 10. Like that's pretty quick, all things considered. In my opinion, like the fighter is the one of the best, if not the best class to multi-class either to or from, because it's just so fundamental and it gives you so many options, and you gain all your bonuses very quickly, so you don't have to go super far into the tree in order to gain all the effects that you would be interested in. Now, you get that heal ability. You can use the feature twice right out the gate. You regain 1 use on short rest. You gain all uses back on long rest. And when you reach certain fighter levels, you gain more uses. And, we just took a look at that. Now, level 1, you also gain, might I add, 3 things. Level 1, all fundamentally great here. Weapon masteries. Your training with weapons allow you to use mastery properties. You get 3 of a kind for simple or martial weapons of your choice, and whenever you long rest, you can change them out by practicing weapon drills. When you reach certain levels in fighter, you gain more of them that you can grab. You're going to be like, Bill, what on earth are these mastery properties, and how do I use them? Well, there's quite a list. I'd recommend going and like pausing the video as I'm like scrolling through these, but it's all your very generic stuff of hitting multiple targets, being able to turn attacks that miss into hits, being able to make extra attacks, moving creatures around, giving creatures disadvantage, reducing their movement speed, knocking them prone, or giving yourself advantage. So quite a bit. And you pretty much only get 3 out the gate, but you get up to 6. That's not bad. That is quite a bit of flexibility that you have in order to use weapons. Now, granted, the weapon has to be able to use that property, but normally you can see if that is an opportunity. Now, what happens when you hit level 2? You gain one of the most famous features of being a fighter, the action surge. You can push yourself beyond your normal limits, only for a moment, and you can take an additional action. However, note, you cannot take the magic action. It is a martial action only. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest, and once you hit level 17, you can use it twice before you have to reset it. That's just beautiful. Like that is hey, I heard you like to hit. So I gave you the ability to hit again with your hit. And I know that as you go on, you can hit and hit again. And then I know if you really stick to it, you can hit, hit, hit. And then if you really go at it, you can go hit, 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 hit. And then you can action surge and just do it again for 8 hits a turn. Like, what? Like, whoever was coming up with this years ago to make this class had an understanding of what you want to do when you are coming in to be a martial class. Like, this is the yardstick for everything. Oh, you leaving, babe? Okay, bye. I love you. Yep. So, sorry about that, everyone, but I have a fiance and she's the most important things. Even when I'm recording videos, I must say goodbye to her. So, there we go. Next, level 2 is Tactical Mind. You have a mind for tactics on and off the battlefield, and when you fail an ability check, you can expend a use of Second Wind to push yourself for success. Oh, and now and that's what happens when I fat finger. There we go. If the check fails, you don't lose your second wind. Now you're going to say, why on earth would I want to expend my healing for the possibility to like succeed a check? Well, riddle me this. You're scaling the outside of a tower and it's 300 feet up in the air and you need to strength check to see if you can just free free climbing pretty much what do you call it when you have the do a chin up effectively in your 100 something pounds of gear that you have on you, and you have the 80-pound gnome on your back as well because there's no way they can climb up the side of the mountain, and they have the teleportation scroll that's going to be able to get the rest of the party up, and both of you need you to be able to do that like chin up, and you're too tired and you fail your first check. Boom, you pop that. You have the possibility of surviving. You're not going to go fall that 300 feet and die. You are going to get that gnome up on top of that ledge because you are the bomb boss fighter that is able to succeed where anyone else fails. Yeah, maybe you're not the sneakiest. Yeah, maybe you're not the smartest. But my gosh, are you the most sticky dude in the action? You are going to succeed on anywhere where strength in most places where dexterity are required. So, Tactical Mind is phenomenal. Now, level 3, standards, you get your subclasses. You have the Battle Master, the Champion, the Eldritch Knight, which are all mainstays. They've been around for a while. The Psi Warrior, though, is new to me. I have not seen that one before. It's interesting. I like it. It's different. Effectively, they've done a lot of things to make multi-classing, I feel, less necessary. They effectively incorporate a lot of the main components that you might want to dip into other trees to go get. So like instead of going and having 5 levels as a fighter and then going and grabbing like 4 levels as a wizard, then going like coming back to have the rest of your levels as a fighter, you instead are heavily incentivized really just to stay as a fighter and instead of just pick that Eldritch Knight. Like that really is it. And while that's nice, I have mixed feelings because I feel like you get significantly less value from this class than getting a full dip into a wizard. But that I think is really remain to be seen if that's going to be held true as like the general consensus. That's just my consensus at this moment. Level 4, you get the ability score improvement, which everyone else gets. It's a little more common, being at 6, 8, 12, 14, and 16, which is a good amount. You also gain at level 5 an extra attack. And now we start to see a little bit of a turn on here. Like they are starting to build up some serious steam. They have critical mass that's starting to achieve. Now, you also gain, because having an extra attack wasn't enough, the tactical shift. What is this? Whenever you activate your second wind with a bonus action, so if you heal yourself, you can move half your speed without provoking attacks of opportunity. Now, there is a strange argument that you could make that you could have tactical mind also trigger this effect. I really feel like that has to be read at the table by whoever's DMing, because I think it isn't meant to behave that way. But technically speaking, if you truly think about like what are the core requirements, it makes sense that tactical mind and tactical shift would trigger off of each other. It's personal opinion, it's really how you want to rule it at the table, but I feel like those two should play together, and I feel like they should play together very well. At level 9, you then gain Indomitable. Whenever you fail a saving throw, you can re-roll it with a bonus equal to your fighter level. You must use the new roll. Can't use it again until long rest. And then you can use the feature twice before a long rest, starting at level 13, and 3 times before a long rest at 17. That's pretty nice. That is respectable. Again, it's just more ways for you not to fail. That gnome should feel incredibly safe nestled up in your backpack, because your arms are made of bands of steel and determination and 1,001 ways to re-roll. Level 9, you get Tactical Master, so just adding more. Whenever you attack with a weapon whose mastery properties you can use, you can just replace the property with push, sap, or slow. You effectively, as long as it has a mastery option available, you also have these options. Is what it is. You effectively always have at least 3 to 4 options if you have an option. So again, it's kind of an all or nothing, but it's a nice all or nothing. You also, at level 11, gain another attack of opportunity. Hey, I heard you like to attack, so I gave you the ability to attack. Like 3 attacks. Yeah, that you are now the reactor. Like anything that comes near you is going to feel like they're in a ninja blender, because you're a literal wall of steel moving at Mach 5, coming for everything that isn't nailed down. And my god, they spoke poorly of your gnome, and now their entire families must be purged for the crimes they've committed. The gnome must be protected. At level 13, you study your attacks. You really study the way of the blade. While they were goofing off, you were studying. And now you get even better at attacking. And this is at level 13. This is not that far. You have 7 levels more. So if you were like, you know what? I might want to go and dip into rogue. So that way, if I hit something with my 3 attacks, they're also poisoned or something. You have a lot of opportunities here, but effectively what studied attacks does is if you make an attack roll against a creature and you miss, you gain advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. So you swing once, you miss. You swing again, you hit. Congratulations, you now are good. You get still another attack. But let's say you missed the first time, you missed the second time. You now have advantage on your third swing. You have a significantly better chance of hitting it. With that rogue that I was discussing, where you have poison, you just need to start stacking it. Which, yeah, sure, maybe you're not doing the most damage just out of the physical hits, but if you have a stacking poison, yeah, every hit is making it significantly worse. So your advantage is increasing your already strong 3 attacks. Like right there, like this is not a bad little dip. You go in for that rogue poison, you come out with that studied attacks, and yeah, they're in for a rough time. 19 is the standard epic boon, and at level 20, you just attack 4 times. You literally are the blender. That is phenomenal. You are a martial class that is a blender. Congratulations. Go have fun. Your enemies will hate you. And here is a black dragon that is an acid type dragon, and it is spewing acid on a fighter that is protecting what looks like Bilbo Baggins. Probably isn't, because, you can't possibly go and step on another person's IP. However, that looks like Bilbo Baggins right there. And that guy right there looks like what is it? Rings of Power. They made Sauron. They made him into like that looking kind of guy. So interesting to say the least. Now, level 3. When you hit let me restart this. Battle Masters. They're really the more generalist. They have a lot of flexibility inside of how they can attack. They have things that are like superiority dies that give you the ability to be more mobile and get into the spots of combat where you are needed most. You're not necessarily the hardest hitting, but you are far more mobile and able to get to the points where you need to hit at. And to do that, at level 3, right out the gate, you gain combat superiority, which gives you access to your maneuvers, which are all about consuming your superiority die. Now, you gain 3 maneuvers right out the gate of your choice from the maneuver option. And we're just going to flip over here so you can see the maneuver options, which is an ambush, bait and switch, commander strike, commanding presence, and I'm not going to go through these. These are going to take a long time to talk through. You can disarm your opponents, you can distract, you can become more evasive, you can have a feinting attack, you can have a goading attack, lunging attack, maneuvering attack, menacing attack. You can parry, you can be precise, you can push, you can rally, you can riposte, you can sweep, and you can do a tactical assessment or even trip an enemy. If you can think of it, this is where it's probably going to like come down into. And yeah, there's a lot of them. There's a lot. I recommend pausing and reading through that. Now, we're not going to go spend a lot of time on that right now. So those are the maneuvers that you immediately gain access to. You learn 2 of those maneuvers of your choice when you reach level set, or sorry, you gain 2 additional maneuvers of your choice on top of the 3 you already know when you hit 7, 10, and 15, meaning you're at 5, 7, and 9. 3, 5, 7, 9. Yep. Okay. That's right. That's a lot. That's a lot you can do with that. On top of that, you also have those 4 superiority die, and they're all d8s. And when you expend them, you regain all expended superiority die on a short or long rest. You gain an additional superiority die when you reach fighter level 7 for 5 dice total, and at 15 you have 6. These dice are pretty much added on top of whatever it is that you're doing. So that way you just have an improved chance of doing your damage or extra status effect. Now, your saving throws. If a maneuver requires a saving throw, the DC is equal to 8 plus your strength or dexterity modifier, and you get a pick, plus the proficiency bonus. And those are your preferred stats of your choice. So you really have very good options, but because you're allowed to pick it on the fly, if you have something that's reducing your strength or reducing your dexterity, and you have to pick between one or the other, and one is higher, you have the ability to choose that. You always are able to flip. So if you're being debilitated in one way or another, like you're tied up, you're still strong, but you might not be able to do all your dexterous maneuvers. There you go. Still have your strength or your dex. That's pretty great. And I just did that. Okay, there we go. Also, at level 3, you gain Student of War. So might I add, you gained all this at level 3. On top of that, you become a Student of War, which means you gained proficiency in artisan tools of your choice, and you gain proficiency in one skill of your choice from the list of skills you already had. So you get even more skills. And what can you do with these artisan tools? You can be an alchemist and make acids or explosives, brewers and make antitoxins or, your normal beer. Do you want to go and try to make spells? Here you go. What about carpentry tools? Do you want to go and make weapons? Here you go. Do you want to have the ability to make maps? You can go be a map maker. What about you want to go and have shoes? Here you go. Do you want to go and be a cook or be able to find spoiled or poisoned food? Here you go. Do you want to be a glass blower, jeweler, leather worker, mason, painter, potter, smith, tinker, weaver, wood carver? And then there's other tools which I don't think fall under these because they're kind of under the other tool group. They're not technically artisan, but I feel like if you talk to a DM, you could probably convince them to let you have access to those if you really want. So yeah, that's just so much RP ability right there out of Student of War. Really nice thing to have. At level 7, you gain Know Your Enemy, which as a bonus action, you can discern strengths and weaknesses of a creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself. You know whether that creature has any immunities, their resistances, their vulnerabilities, and if that creature has any, you're going to know. Effectively, you don't have to go spend half a session to go determine what exactly something is. You can walk up to it, and as long as you can see what it is within 30 feet, that thing's immune to fire. No point in me putting fire into it. But I do know that even though you think it's actually weak to ice, it's not. It's actually weak to earth. So if we bury it in a pit, it's going to die. So, really useful little ability. And again, you get that at level 7, very early on. Very usable. At level 10, you gain improved combat superiority, which is you can give yourself a d10. At level 15, you become relentless, and once per turn, whenever you use a maneuver, you can roll 1d8 and use the number rolled instead of expending a superiority die. You get free superiority dice that you can use once a turn. That's nice. That is pretty nice. 18, ultimate combat superiority. You're no longer rocking that pretty solid D10 or that baby D8. You're rocking that big boy D12 to go lay down the law. That's just beautiful. That is what a melee fighter weeps for right there. You have all the maneuver options right here, which I've already gone through. And then after all this, we now get to discuss the champion, which while the battle master was more intellectual, being in the right place at the right time, being able to have a lot of flexibility to be able to hit in the way that you need to hit, this one, the champion, is about hitting and hitting as hard as it physically can. This is about putting something down through the most brutal of strikes. And right out the gate, you get improved criticals. What is an improved critical? You crit on 19 or 20, not just on a 20, which means you now have a 20% chance. Wait, is that correct? No, because it's a D20, so you have a 5% chance right out the gate. So you have a 10% chance on 19 to 20. Then at level 3, remarkable. Am I? I'm pretty sure I did that math right, but now I feel like I have to verify myself. So let me just double check here, because you should never trust yourself to do. Yeah, 10%. Good. Whew. Did not have to remake this video. Yes. Because if I said something that stupid, I would definitely have to remake this video. Level 3, Remarkable Athlete. Thanks to your athleticism, you gain advantage on initiative and your strength athletic checks. In addition, you immediately score a critical hit. You can move up to half your speed without provoking attack of opportunity. So not only are you better at getting attacks of opportunity, or sorry, getting that critical hit, you then get the ability to move without provoking those attacks of opportunity. Great, great choices. Also note, also counts to unarmed strikes. This is applicable to your monks, just making your monk more likely to crit. And giving that movement speed. That's pretty nice for monks as well. Now, at level 7, you gain an additional fighting style, which we went over, which is like your defender, archer, so on and so forth. All great things. At level 10, you become a heroic warrior, and during combat, you can give yourself heroic inspiration whenever you start your turn without it. So, if you, a player character, gain heroic inspiration, you can expend it to reroll any die immediately after rolling it, but you must use the new number. So you roll a 1, you immediately reroll it. There we go. If you gain heroic inspiration but already have it, it's lost unless you give it to a player character who lacks it. So, technically speaking, the way I read this is you can give yourself this heroic inspiration on the start of your turn, hand it off to somebody else. Get it again next turn, hand it to somebody else. It's a pretty good way to effectively get a free bard. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's not bad. And it's only combat related. Still great. Now, 15, you gain superior critical. You now have 18 to 20, so that's a 15% increase. Or you have a 15% chance, not 15% increase. That's not how that works. But that's pretty good. Then at 18, you gain the ability of being a survivor. And you have Death Defy, which just gives you advantage on death saving throws, which is great. But it has the more important benefit of allowing on an 18 to 20, 15% chance now from only being 5, you effectively can immediately stand up as if you roll a 20. That's pretty good. That is significantly better. It doesn't necessarily remove the chance of you having that negative, but because you have advantage, it greatly reduces your chance of failing those checks, and it greatly increases your chance of getting those very favorable positive outcomes. So you have that. On top of it, you also have Heroic Rally, which effectively just lets you regen health as long as you aren't knocked out. And you are bloodied, which means you have less than half health. But again, you have one of the largest hit dice. You're going to have a lot of health. Even if you're at half health, you still are going to have more health than most of the casting classes right out the gate. You're going to start regaining your hit points equal to 5 plus your constitution modifier. If you have a 2 on your constitution, that's 7 constitution modifier. That's 7 HP every turn. That's not a lot, but it's consistent. And it happens like clockwork. You are always going to be healing no matter what. This will happen inside combat. This will happen outside of combat. This is going to keep you ready to not have to leave the fight. Like, you are going to be able to stay around that midway topped up point. It's nice. Now, Eldritch Knight. This is your caster warrior. Right out the gate, You gain 2 cantrips. They are wizard cantrips right there. We're going to have to go through that a little bit later. Whenever you gain a fighter level, you can replace one of these cantrips with another cantrips from the wizard's list. You also gain an additional cantrip once you hit level 10. You also get to know multiple spells. You regain them at long rest. So, at level 3 fighter, you have 3 spells prepared, and it goes up to 13, which isn't bad. But note, you're not a true caster. You're maxing out at only tier 4 spells, which isn't terrible, but many of the pure casters are going to have far stronger spell options than you. However, you also bring a lot of martial power. So while you might not be the strongest caster, you do still have your melee that you rely upon for your bread and butter. You just have all these spell abilities that you can bring in to augment your frontline capabilities. And as I said, you get 3 level 1 spells. They recommend jump. I would also recommend jump. Jump is a phenomenal spell when you want to be able to get into something. This is a great way to be able to get there. Now, you can change your spells whenever you level up. Yeah, whenever you gain a fighter level, you can replace the spells. There you go. All your spells scale with intelligence, so not your strength, not your dexterity. You do have to have some intelligence in order to get this to work. However, you effectively have spells that you can use for this, as long as you have intelligence. You also need to have an arcane focus. These are crystals, orbs, rods, your quarterstaff, or a wand. So most of the standard things. Level 3, you gain War Bond. Now, War Bond is a ritual between yourself and one weapon. You perform the ritual over the course of an hour, and it can be done during a short rest, so you can rest and do this to a weapon, in which you go through the ritual, and at the conclusion, you must touch the weapon and forge the bond. The weapon fails if another fighter is bonded to the weapon, or the weapon is a magic item which someone else has attuned. So, you cannot have 2 different people bonded to the same weapon. If someone else, for instance, a lich, is bonded to a quarterstaff, you can't steal that quarterstaff and then bond to it, because it's still the lich's attuned quarterstaff. But if you do successfully bond with that weapon, you are no longer able to be disarmed, unless you're incapacitated. And if it's on the same plane of existence as you, so as long as you're, in the hells and you brought your sword in there with you, and you're still in the hells, you can summon the sword to you. So somehow you manage to have your sword teleported in a massive pit by some archfiend, and it's still in the hells. My sword's back. Oh, I'm sorry you burned a greater teleportation. My sword's just right here. I burnt a bonus action. You burnt a 6th level spell slot? Wow. Yeah, that's gotta suck. Anyways, I'm gonna kill you now. And that's really how it works. It's pretty great. As long as you're able to be in the same plane, you can pull it back. Now, the bond fails, okay, you can summon it with a bonus action, and it teleports instantly to your hand. When you have up to 2 bonded weapons, you can summon only one at a time with a bonus action. So if you're bonded to 2 daggers if you wanted, because you're a rogue, you would not be able to teleport both of them back simultaneously. You would have to do one and then the other. But, I think that's pretty reasonable. You can't ever really lose them as long as you're on the same plane. Now, level 7, you gain War Magic. Whenever you take an attack action, you can replace one of your attacks with a casting of one of your wizard cantrips. Note, it calls out cantrip. You cannot cast your tier 4 spell, or your 3 spell, your 2 spell, or your 1 spell. You can only cast a cantrip. This is important because that means you're really limited on what type of spells you have available to you as a replacement of your attack action. You have 3 attacks, let's say, or 2 attacks, let's say. You can attack with the spell. You have 3 attacks, you can attack twice with the spell. You can attack 3 times with the spell. They will all be cantrips. That is very important to denote. That is very important to be aware of. You're not going to be casting Fireball 3 times. You're going to be casting Burning Hands or one of the other cantrips. Actually, I don't think Burning Hands is a cantrip. Never mind. You're going to be casting some cantrip. Magic Missile, maybe. It's one of the low-level spells. At level 10, you gain Eldritch Strike. You learn how to make a weapon strike, undercutting a creature's ability to withstand your spells. So, if you hit them with a weapon, they gain disadvantage on saving throws against your spells until the next turn. So, you can hit them once, and then you just follow up with the spell. And if you have some way to cast Charm Person, let's say, you hit them, they now have disadvantage, you can charm them, boom, boom, you now have them under your thrall. It really strong way of using it. Yeah, you only have cantrips, but there's a lot of ways you can use cantrips to mess with people if you're creative. At level 15, you get Arcane Charge. Whenever you use Action Surge, you can teleport up to 30 feet in an unoccupied space you can see. You can teleport before or after the additional action. That's great. Level 18, Improved War Magic. If you take an attack action on your turn, you can replace 2 attacks with a casting of one of your level 1 or level 2 wizard spells that has a casting time of an action. So, if you have 3 attacks, you can effectively cast your level 1 or level 2 spell. That's great. Can't cast your level 3 or level 4, but you do gain, you have what, 3/5? Because you have your cantrip, your level 1, your level 2, your level 3, and your level 4. So you gain access to your first 3 tiers if you get rid of 2 attack actions. Not amazing, but not terrible, especially when you think, if you go all the way in until you have 4 attack options, you can cast 2 spells that are level 1 or level 2 right out the gate. Just boom, boom. That's pretty good. So, that's the end of the Eldritch Knight, your wizard warrior. Now, if you wanted to be a wizard warrior, but more defensively, or at least that's my interpretation of really what the Psi Warrior is going for, you gain psionic powers and a bunch of Psi Warrior energy dice. And these effectively allow you to do many different actions. If you hit level 17 with them, you have 12 of them you can do. If you're at level 3, you're at 4. It scales up pretty quickly. I kind of wish between 9 and 11 it didn't stay at 8 twice. But I really do feel like they try to force you to choose to cross class like around that point. Like the fighter really is built for multi-classing, but they don't really want you to. So because of this, there's this kind of like weird middle area, and I think this is the best spot of showing it, where you're not getting an improvement anywhere in the middle of your levels between 9 and 11. But in reality, if you're really looking at what's happening, Like, you're not getting more uses per se, but you are getting a bigger dice. So there is an improvement, but it's not as much as like between 3 and 5 where you go from a D6 to a D8 and get 2 additional casts. And then here you get 2 more additional casts, but you don't get any improvement. So it's like it happens, but it doesn't, like, it feels like this first bump is really good. And then after that, it's good. It's just not as good. And then it happens again at level 17. You get another nice, like, ooh, that's a good right there. Like that D12s and 12. Like that's good. That's good. These are nice, but like it feels a little lopsided between 9 and 13. Just it it staggers a little bit. But it's still a very strong choice. Again, like many of the kind of caster groups, you get one on short rest, you get all of them back on long rest. And what exactly do these dice do? Well, they have a protective field, which you or another creature you see within 30 feet of you that takes damage, you can take reaction, expend a die, roll that die, and reduce the damage they take. And you can do that as many times as your intelligence modifier. That's not bad. You create a momentary shield of telekinetic force, is how they describe it. So if you have +2 to intelligence, you can do this twice. Now, psionic striking, you can propel weapons with your psionic force. So you have a sword, you swing it, it now is gaining psychic force behind it. And once on each of your turns, immediately after you hit a target within 30 feet of yourself. So, you know, if you have a longbow and you're hitting a target 120 feet away, you don't get this. But if you throw a javelin at something, you can get this. You can attack and deal damage to it with a weapon. You expend 1 psychic energy die, roll it, deal that much damage to the target equal to the number rolled plus your intelligence modifier. That's respectable. It's not huge, but yeah, I think that's pretty nice. You also have telekinetic movement. You can move an object or creature with your mind as a magic action. Choose one target you can see within 30 feet of yourself. The target must be a loose object that is large or smaller, or one willing creature other than you. You transport that target 30 feet to an unoccupied space. Alternatively, if the target is a tiny object, you can transport it to or from your hand. So, there you go. Once you take this action, you can't do so again until a short or long rest, unless you expend a psychic die. So, effectively, you can move like keys if someone is showing you the jailer key and then they put it in their pocket. Before it goes all the way in their pocket, you can just teleport it and palm it. There you go. Pretty nice little thing you can grab there at level 3. Be a nice little touch for a rogue. A lot of opportunity with that. If you go to level 7 with the fighter, you become a telekinetic adept. You gain the leap ability as a bonus action. You can gain fly speed equal to twice your speed until the end of your current turn. Can't use it again until short or long rest, or you expend a psychic energy die. You also gain telekinetic thrust, which is you deal damage to a target with your psionic strike. You can force the target to make a strength saving throw, DC 8, intelligence modifier, and proficiency bonus. If they fail, they're prone. Or you can transport it up to 10 feet horizontally. And you think, well, it sucks because I can't put them straight up in the air or straight down to the ground. However, if you're near any hole or well or anything with a long fall, as long as it's a horizontal move, 10 feet, boom. You bait them close, you drop them. 1 second. Pardon me. Now, at level 10, you gain the Guarded Mind, which gives you resistance to psychic damage, as well as at the start of your turn, you can expend 1 psychic die and remove charmed or frightened conditions. And you remove all of those conditions. Gone. So if you have multiple charms, multiple frightens, 1 dice. Disappeared. Phenomenal. Level 15, Bulwark of Force. You can shield yourself and others with your telekinetic force. And as bonus action, you can choose creatures, including yourself, within 30 feet of you, up to a number of creatures equal to your intelligence modifier. So if you have 2, you can choose 2 other creatures. Oh, it includes yourself. So you would be 1, another creature would be another. And then you can give those creatures half cover for 1 minute. So if you, let's say, you like to use a 2-hander and you would like to be able to have a solid wall in front of you, maybe not full cover, but hey, you have half cover. You could go and put a telekinetic wall around yourself, and for 1 total minute, you are going to have an improved chance of pushing through an archer wall or something like that because you have half cover in all directions. That's pretty good. At level 18, you gain the Telekinetic Master. You always have the Telekinesis spell prepared. You can use this feature to cast it without a spell slot or the components, and your spellcasting ability for it is Intelligence. Each turn, while you maintain concentration on it, including the turn you cast it, you can make 1 attack with a weapon as a bonus action. That can be pretty nice. Once you cast a spell with this feature, you can't do so in this way again until you finish a long rest, unless you expend an additional psionic energy die. There is no action required to restore it. So, something that I noticed is the telekinesis spell, which has some restrictions on what exactly you can grab, but you could go and grab some pretty large items and effectively bludgeon people with them. Or grab like a maul and beat someone over the head with it. There's a lot you can do with this, but it is a very respectable spell. Overall, the Psi Warrior I view as a more defensive oriented Eldritch Knight with some extra flavorsing for mobility. It's somewhere between being a battle master and being an Eldritch Knight, but it has its own flair. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. This was Mr. No Souls, and if you like these videos, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know in the comments. Anyways, I am going to rest my voice now at this point. Adios.